First patron question by Gusale. Gusale is asking, I would love to hear Armin and Harris discuss the similarities and differences in the contemporary expressions of Islamism in Pakistan and Iran. What socio-historical contexts give rise to these differences? I mean, I don't know, because for somebody to be able to compare these two, you have to know both of them. But I know Iran very well, and Harris knows Pakistan very well. How do you think we can compare these? How do you
maybe you should talk about Iran? Yeah, I know, but it's like I guess if I understand it correctly, it's basically saying similarities and differences in the contemporary expression of Islamism. So, well, the major difference obviously is the Shia and Sunni, and the other one is like they're both Islam. So, the way Shiaism, how Iran has gone about the business dealing with Islam is a Shia version, and Pakistan is not really fully Islamic. So Iran is an Islamic Republic. Sorry, it is an Islamic state, whereas Pakistan isn't. Pakistanis don't claim. Pakistani government does not, even though they call it Islamic Republic of Pakistan, but it's not an Islamic. It's not a theocracy. So they go about their business a bit differently than, I don't know. Like, I mean, how can
So based on what you're saying, one difference is that it seems like in Iran, the government is more religious than the people, and in Pakistan, the people seem to be more religious than the government.
Exactly. Yeah.
And also, the trend seems to be in Iran. The trend seems to be moving away from religion at a very fast rate. Not only away from religion, but towards hatred of religion. What about in Pakistan? Are people becoming more or less religious?
Yeah, in Pakistan, there you go. Pakistan people are definitely becoming more Muslim, more Islamic.
Really?
Yeah. You would find this classic Pakistani way of looking into Islam, where there are these elites or higher upper middle class, etc., where they like to say that this is Islam. Sorry, that they have the rosy picture of Islam, and they would bring up Allah, mashallah, or Allah, Islam is there for until the Judgment Day, and Allah specially gave us this, gifted us this country, blah blah blah. But in their private lives, you don't see any Islam. So they'll be doing, but that's the elite, or even the middle class. They would go about their business. Like, for example, entertainment dramas with the movies and dramas, and that they are still very popular, which are the religious people keep on telling Pakistani youth and Pakistanis that, hey, this is un-Islamic, don't do it, but they don't care, they don't listen. So clerics, so social media, this is actually an interesting parallel. Up until I would say until the advent of social media, Pakistanis would not see anything Islamic like the tilawat of the Quran or anything Islamic. Just at 3 o'clock, I'm talking about the 90s and before that. At 3 o'clock, they would say a Qari would sit down and he would just for 5 minutes he would recite something from the Quran, and in the morning we'll have a nasheed, and that's it. That was our exposure to Islam on TV. But now, because we've got a YouTube account, so these clerics in Pakistan have enormous success. They're next to popular celebrities. Their views go in millions, but at the same time, these TV serials, these TV dramas and movies on YouTube, etc., they also attract the highest ratings. So it's a bit of a conundrum because the government allows that, and that's why people still are connected to it. So there are no calls for look, there are some calls, but it doesn't look like that the government of Pakistan is ever going to shut down these TV serials that are discussing male female romance and people having affairs and that kind of stuff. So I can't imagine that kind of storyline being featured on Iran state TV and being allowed.
So being able to That's the difference between the governments, right? So even though Iranian people are less religious, because the government is more religious and government controls the media, even though people demand that kind of like liberal kind of shows where the government doesn't allow it. But here's an interesting connection between Iran and Pakistan. The rise of Islamism in Pakistan is because of Iran. Did you know that?
Not really. I don't think so. I think we blame Saudi Arabia, because if that was because of it, well, I'm assuming whichever way you're going. So you're probably going. So Pakistani Shias, they always look towards Iran. They always do. So you could argue, and I'm thinking this is where you're going to go. You could argue that because there was more Islamism, Wahhabi Islam by Saudi Arabia, therefore Iran kind of matched it as well in the Shia community. Is that where you're going?
No, I'm not talking about the Shias in Pakistan. I'm specifically talking about the Sunnis in Pakistan. Okay. So the rise of Sunni Wahhabism in Pakistan is because of the rise of Shia Islam in Iran.
Okay, how so?
Because after the 1979 Islamic Revolution in Iran, Iran started exporting as they put it, exporting the revolution outside of Iranians' borders. Okay, it was in response to this move by the Iranian regime that Saudi Arabia started investing in madrasas everywhere outside of Saudi Arabia and the spread of Wahhabism. Okay, in Indonesia and Malaysia, and especially in Pakistan, in Egypt, and everywhere else. And this rise of exporting of Wahhabism is what led to Al-Qaeda and ISIS and everything. But this was a direct response to Iranians' proxy building outside of its borders that Saudi Arabia did this.
Yeah, I'm not sure if I'm convinced of that, because definitely not in the case of Pakistan. We've never heard of this. The classic narrative is that because of the Afghan jihad, they started exporting jihadi, Salafi version of Islam in madrasas, because that's where most of the recruitments were going to come from. So that's when and when the jihad was won against the Soviets, and then there were so many people there, they had already built this basic infrastructure, and they said, well, why don't we just keep on pumping this money, and then we get our own version of Islam in Pakistan, and as a result, Pakistan will have this huge army to ourselves. Like, it's just a classic case of influence. That
happened at 1979, right after the Islamic Revolution in Iran inspired the Wahhabis in Saudi Arabia to do an attempted coup against the House of Saud. Right, the House of Wahhab raised, because the House of the Wahhabis and the Saudis, they were in a political marriage since the beginning, right? You know that, right? And the Saudis represent the monarchy and the money. The Wahhabis represent the religion, right? And there's actually a literal marriage, not just a political marriage. There was actually the families married into each other. But ever since, the Americans started making deals with the Saudis, the House of Saud thought that they don't need the Wahhabis anymore, and they became more and more westernized, right? Until 1979, when, because of the revolution in Iran, which was Muslims around the world were encouraged to stand up against pro-American monarchs. So the Wahhabis in Saudi Arabia saw that, and they took over, they attacked the Kaaba, the siege of Kaaba, right? And the Saudi, they managed to kill them and everything, but they were terrified. And right after that attack, they changed the rules. So they made so if you look at Saudi Arabia before 1979, it was becoming very Western. Like if you look at the reporters, female reporters everywhere, lots of makeup, no hijab, McDonald's everywhere, like a lot of Westernized things. But it was that attack and also advertisement of Iran into the borders of Saudi Arabia that encouraged them to go full Sharia on everyone's ass and basically start. If you actually look at the number of madrasas that the Saudis were building that existed outside of Saudi Arabia, right after 1979, it like goes up like a hockey stick. I mean, before 1979 in Pakistan, if you ask most people what's the difference between Shia and a Sunni, they wouldn't be able to tell you. But now they hate the Shias. You know, like this tension between Shias and Sunnis was because of all this Wahhabi ideology that was spreading in Pakistan out of Saudi Arabia in response to Iran. By the way, this is not my claim.
No.
This is like what experts are. This is documented. Like,
I don't know. I'm not convinced by whatever outline you've given me, because there's another key event in 1979. That was Soviet tanks rolling into Afghanistan. That's what happened in 79. And that is the traditional narrative, that's what happened. The US got involved. They said, okay, we'll give you these weapons. You give us your petrodollars, and Pakistan will give you these young cannon fodder, basically, to fight against the Soviets. So that is another key event that happened in 1979. And again, as I said, that has remained the most popular and well-believed explanation.
That doesn't contradict what I'm saying, because if you
it doesn't contradict, but it doesn't. But it doesn't answer that either. Yeah,
I know, but the reason, like, they used the Afghanistan war and to go into Afghanistan and Pakistan and other reasons, because they wanted to be around Iran's borders with their dogs. Do you know what I mean? Like, Iran was coming with its own Shia proxies around Saudi Arabia's borders. Saudi Arabia was looking for excuses to have its proxies around Iranian borders.
Look, as I said, they might have had multiple objectives to invest money in Pakistan, but then they were doing that in other countries as well. They were doing that in Turkey. They were doing that in
Indonesia, Malaysia.
Yeah, but there were no borders.
Actually, that's a very good point, because if after 1979 it started picking up everywhere, not just in Afghanistan and
but immediately
Pakistan.
But one could argue that why Pakistan allowed it in, that would have been because they said, okay, let the money come in, and because Pakistan genuinely thought that this idea was sold to Pakistan, the Soviet Union wants to come to the warm waters of the Arabian Sea, Karachi and all Afghanistan, because Afghanistan was landlocked. So that's the idea that was sold, and then later on in declassified documents that they said, well, when the Soviet Union collapsed, they said, well, they had no intentions of coming into Pakistan. So Pakistan just got involved for no reason. And they messed it up. But anyway, so I don't know. Like, I mean, that could have been one of the objectives, but I'm not sure if I'm fully convinced. But as I said, like, it could be. Like, when you invest that much money into something, you don't just go with one objective. You have multiple objectives too. So yeah.
Well, I mean, the siege of Kaaba seems to have been the trigger. Okay, maybe you're not convinced. Okay, and the siege of Kaaba was inspired by the anti-monarchy revolution in Iran. So because they're like, we took out one monarchy that is pro-American. Why not? Why Muslims were like, we can do the same thing? Yeah. All right. To have your questions answered on the next live stream, become my patron today. You can do so with as little as $1 a month. Link in the description below.